Have you ever wondered what's inside your pickleball paddle? Ever wondered what actually makes up all this bulk inside the paddle? Today I'm going to tell you all about pickleball paddle cores, and I'm going to show you why I only choose one type. Stay tuned. Hey guys, Barrett here. Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about pickleball paddle cores, what the differences are. I'm going to show you the 3 different types, and then I'm going to make some recommendations for you. So before we begin, I have written a lot about this topic before. There's an article on my website that you can find if you go to pickleballkitchen.com/cores. Just type that into your address bar. It'll lead you right to it. There's probably a lot more details on there that I'll most likely forget in this video. So if you want to get more, you can go there. And when it comes to picking a paddle, what core you pick isn't as important as the weight of your paddle. Whenever I'm guiding someone through the process of picking a paddle for them, weight is the #1 factor. So just keep that in mind as we talk about this. There are differences between the core types, but they're not like gargantuan. And also, the differences between these cores aren't as extreme when you're a beginner, but they are when you're advanced. Okay, this is why advanced players typically only play with one type. But having said that, let's get into it. All right, so as you guys know, when pickleball first started, people only used wooden paddles. I mean, they were literally just planks of wood that they would smack the ball with. It wasn't until I think it was the 80s that the first composite paddle was made. Now, what is composite? Composite just means multiple things that come together to make one thing. So the analogy I use is a ham sandwich, right? So you have the bread, you have the ham, the cheese, and the mayo or the mustard, whatever your flavor is. That's a sort of composite sandwich. Pickleball paddles are the same way. You've got the core material that's inside here, you've got the face, and you've got the edge guard, and you also have the handle. It's called a composite paddle because all these little parts come together to make one thing. Now, what we'll be talking about today is what's inside here. Not the face, but what's inside. The first thing to understand is how a pickleball paddle core is actually made. Let me show you. It's pretty cool because some of these paddles, you can actually see right through it. Now, if you can see this, do you see those little cells? See these little hexagons? That's the actual core material inside the paddle. The reason why you can see it is because this face is actually fiberglass. Great paddle, by the way. Now, that shape is what people call the honeycomb design. If you think about honeycomb, they're basically little hexagons that are lined up next to each other. Okay? And the reason why they do this is because, first of all, it takes a lot of the weight out because you can remove those cells, right? But also it creates a lot of structure and it creates a lot of strength. So the reason why they use a honeycomb design for pickleball paddles is because they want to give you plenty of power behind your stroke, behind your shots, but they also don't want to make the paddle too heavy. That was a huge concern with wooden paddles back in the day because wooden paddles, they would weigh, 20 ounces, sometimes more. Whereas now a typical composite paddle is going to weigh about 7.5 to 8 ounces. So a honeycomb design is a big part of what makes composite paddles so amazing and so powerful. When it comes to the core materials, there's 3 types. Let me show you the first one. Now, I can't actually rip these paddles open because, I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? But the first one is Nomex. Now, you've probably seen this paddle before. It is extremely popular. It's actually, quite frankly, legendary. This is the Onyx E5. And inside this Onyx E5 is Nomex. Nomex is the most explosive, the most powerful, but also the loudest type of core material. And it was actually the first core material used in the first composite paddle made, I think it was back in the 70s or the 80s. Nomex it was a material that was used in airplanes and firefighter helmets and things like that to act as a fire retardant. Okay, so that was its original use, which is why you found it in airplanes. Now back then, that was a really big deal because they cut the weight of the paddle effectively in half, which gave them a huge advantage. Today, you don't see Nomex paddles as much anymore. Nomex is known for being extremely powerful, extremely explosive. However, they're also known for not getting as much control over the ball. If you, for example, if an opponent hits a really hard power shot right at you and you block it with this paddle, it's going to explode right off, and that could lead to you getting smashed right in the face, right? Because you don't have as much control over how hard the ball bounces off these types of paddles. Another popular paddle that you see with a Nomex core is the Gamma Atomic, either the regular or the 2.0. That's also a really popular one. I've seen someone that I know smash some crazy balls with this one. So in terms of Nomex, it's a very powerful core. It gives you lots of power. However, in my opinion, power is kind of overrated in pickleball. So a lot of beginners like to go that route, but eventually they move on to my favorite core. I'll get into that in just a second. Now, the second type of core material is aluminum. Now, if you've never played with an aluminum paddle, I highly, highly recommend that you do, just for the experience of getting to know what it feels like. It's a crazy feeling. This is the Selkirk 300A XL. I don't think they make this anymore. If you want to get an aluminum paddle, it's actually the 300A Plus or something like that. But aluminum is known for being sort of the finesse core, and also the very lightweight core. Typically, not always, but typically aluminum paddles are very lightweight, and they feel very lightweight. They feel kind of handle heavy. In other words, when you swing the paddle, a lot of the weight feels like it's in the handle instead of being up here. And so what that translates into is less power. However, you have this crazy finesse game at the net. So if you want to get some really, really easygoing dinks, some really nice, cross-court dinks and stuff like that, or if someone is hitting these power shots towards you, this is going to help you get a lot more finesse on those shots. Now, it's not that much difference from the next core type that we're going to talk about, but the only reason why I would recommend an aluminum paddle for anyone would be if you have very severe arm or wrist limitations in any way. So like you have really bad arthritis or you have really bad tennis elbow. These lightweight aluminum paddles could be a good option for you. But again, the differences just aren't that extreme to warrant getting an entirely new paddle core and getting used to it as well. Believe me, when you hit balls with this thing, with an aluminum paddle, it's a completely different experience. You lose so much power. It's actually kind of nuts, to be honest. All right, so the next core material. I showed this one in the very beginning of the video. And next core material is polymer. Now, I guarantee that you've heard that term before. Polymer sounds like a fancy term. It's really not. Poly, of course, means many. Mer actually means unit. So polymer means many units. And basically what it is it's many of these little molecules chained together to make the most popular material in the world, plastic. Polymer is just plastic. There is plastic inside here. More specifically, the plastic that most manufacturers use is polypropylene. Polypropylene is very durable, it's very flexible, it's very strong, and that's why it's used so often, but it's also used for pickleball paddles. The cool thing about using a polymer paddle, and by the way, like 95+% of all paddles are made out of polymer, which is why it's the only one I recommend. The cool thing about it is that it gives you a balance between that Nomex and that aluminum. There's kind of a continuum when it comes to paddle cores. You have Nomex on one side, aluminum on the other side, and right in the middle is this balance, and that balance is polymer. A polymer core will give you that power that you want, but it'll also give you that control and that finesse that you need as well, right? So if you're an advanced player, you probably understand that pickleball is very opportunistic. You have to take those opportunities to smash the ball, but most of the game is played at the net and it's very soft and there's a lot of finesse involved, right? This is the advantage of a polymer core. And it's also why it's the only core that I ever play with. So what's interesting about these cores is that there's actually an audible difference between all three of them. Let me show you. I'm going to edit this together. I'm going to show you what they sound like. I'm using the brand new Onyx Fuse ball, now USAPA approved without conditioning. Pretty cool. All right. Here's the Nomex paddle. Listen to this. I have a friend who uses one of these paddles. Whenever he hits it, sometimes I get this ear ringing feeling in one of my ears. These are extremely loud paddles, Nomex is. And so if you have any noise ordinances in your area and you play outdoors, don't use a Nomex paddle, believe me. Don't use it. Next paddle, aluminum. Kind of high-pitched, right? Has this sort of high-pitched sort of sound. And the polymer core. A lot more dull, but also a lot quieter, right? So in terms of recommendations, really, there's only one type of core that I would recommend to the vast majority of players, and that is, of course, polymer. It's the plastic. Most manufacturers who are making paddles, especially the new ones, the new paddles that are coming out, they're all going to be polymer. Now, if you're a power-only player, go for the Nomex, definitely. If you just want to play power all day, every day, and that's your thing, yeah, you can go for a Nomex. That's totally cool. If you have really bad arm or wrist issues, I'm no doctor, you should not take anything I say as medical advice, but if you have like really bad tennis elbow or something like that, you can probably get away with using an aluminum paddle, but believe me, you're going to lose a ton of power, a ton. But for most people, polymer is your paddle. All right, guys, so I hope that was helpful. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, you can go to pickleballkitchen.com/course to get more information. Hope that was helpful, guys. See you next time.